Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to be joined with Abigail Johnston and Michelle Stravitz, and part of our NBC webinar series that we moved from Sundays to Wednesdays. But I think webinar Wednesdays sound pretty good and catchy too. So we might have something going on. I know most of you guys know me, Laura, the executive director and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, and I am so thrilled and honored to be joined with Abigail Johnston. I also feel like all of you guys know in our SBC and breast cancer community, she is a board member for survivingbreastcancer.org, as well as a co-chair for our NBC leadership team, and has her hands in absolutely everything. She's a mover and a shaker. And Abigail and I had the opportunity to meet Michelle at San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium in person, though our history with Michelle goes way back. And so I'm just really excited to have Michelle, who is one of the co-founders of Two Unstoppable, joining us tonight. And I think this is like, for me, hanging out with my friends. So I'm so excited for the content tonight. I'm looking forward to it. Abigail, as always, thank you for hosting and moderating our NBC webinar series. So I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Laura. And always thankful for the supports that those of us in the NBC community get from organizations like survivingbreastcancer.org, because it's easy to feel a little lost sometimes with organizations that mix together early stage and MBC patients. So I'm very appreciative to Laura and everybody at survivingbreastcancer.org for listening when I fussed at them. So thank you, Laura. And yes, so this is our webinar series has moved to Wednesdays now. I'm still getting used to that. It's not the NBC Sunday series anymore, but our commitment to addressing those things that are specific to the NBC community has not changed. And one of the things that often happens with something called survivorship programs is that many of those of us who are metastatic are excluded from the services, because many of those programs, although that's changing, are focused on the aftermath of treatment. And, my mom was an early stage breast cancer patient. She's had to deal with that aftermath of treatment for 20 plus years now, thank God, knock on wood. So I recognize very much as an MBC patient that those people who have gone through treatment and are on the other side have unique needs. But so do those of us in the MBC community, because dealing with the ongoing treatment can be really, really difficult. And having any energy to get up and move, to do any kind of exercise that looks like anything from before cancer can be really, really difficult. And so when I got to the point in 2022 of needing to get back to something that looked like regular activity, whatever that means for anybody who's watching, a good friend of mine, Lisa Hahn, recommended Two Unstoppable, and the fact that they had a separate cohort, separate group for people specifically with MBC. And I don't know about anybody who's watching, but when you have bone mets and you know that your bones are weakened because you see those holes in your bones after the cancer is dead, the idea that you could be hurt, the idea that you could break a bone, becomes something that's very top of mind. And so I was very worried about that, getting back to anything that looked like it was before cancer. And that's where I found Two Unstoppable. Lisa recommended it so strongly. She was in one of the original classes, and I think my class was farther down the line. So I'm sure that Michelle will talk about that a little bit more, but that's the context. That's where we wanted to bring you guys this option, because it is virtual and it is something that's very targeted to MBC patients. As a lot of exercise programs aren't. And we're going to hear a little bit more about the science behind what Two Unstoppable does. And so, Michelle, I would love for you to introduce yourself, and then we can get into the deck and all of the great stuff that you put together for us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Abigail. And thank you, Laura. It's always an honor to work together to help the breast cancer community. So I'll just do a brief introduction. My name, as she said, is Michelle Stravitz, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of a nonprofit organization called Two Unstoppable. Our mission is to help women with a cancer diagnosis, no matter when that was or where they are on their journey, to improve their outcomes through exercise. And I myself was diagnosed in 2015 with triple negative breast cancer. And I personally experienced both the challenges as well as the benefits of exercise after diagnosis. The more I learned, the more I realized how important exercise is for those of us who have been diagnosed with cancer. And yet I also learned that very few women are getting the exercise they need. So together with another breast cancer survivor, I founded Too Unstoppable in 2017. We launched online live in 2018, and I'm happy to be here tonight to share with you what we've learned and how we work together to help you get moving.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle. So I think what I want everybody to hear is that it is possible. And with some help and with some of the social support that Too Unstoppable provides, it's not as daunting as it seems when you think about getting moving after a cancer diagnosis or after chemotherapy or in the midst of chemotherapy. So I think that message is so important, I think.
And Abigail, I'm going to jump right in and highlight something you just said, which is really the secret sauce of Too Unstoppable, which is that we don't just talk about or provide exercise programs. We always couple the exercise program with social support, with social connection, because we know that one, it reinforces the other. We know that you're more likely to exercise if you have somebody to work out with, whether a fitness buddy, a community of women, a class you've signed up to show up for. When other people are counting on you, motivating you, holding you accountable, you're more likely to exercise. You're more likely to work a little harder, go a little longer, and keep up with it. Because we're not talking about exercising for a few weeks. We're talking about exercising for the rest of our lives. We need to change our lifestyle behaviors. So one reinforces the other. We also know that it goes the other way. When people exercise together, that fosters social connection. When we move together, we're more likely to open up and feel that support. And so that's where that secret sauce comes in. And I think it's really consistent actually with survivingbreastcancer.org, because it's all about that support along with all the other learning. So I love that you highlighted that right up front.
That's the secret sauce. So that is the thing I think that makes Too Unstoppable different from, say, signing up for a gym or doing something else on your own.
Exactly.
So with all of that said, let's dive in. Let's get to the deck.
Great. Let me share our presentation and we will get started.
Okay, so let's just dive in and talk a little bit about exercising after a cancer diagnosis. And as Abigail said earlier, we know that this can be very challenging for many of us for a lot of reasons. So we're going to talk a little bit about the why, and we're going to talk a little bit about the how. Because before I even get into it, I know that the best reason for you to exercise is the reason that's going to get you off the couch. So you need to find your why as you listen to all of this information. And the best type of exercise for you is the one you're going to do. So you need to find your how as we talk all about this. So find your personal why and your personal how, and that's how you might get moving. And we're here to help you. So let's dive in. Let's go to the next slide.
And please feel free as you're watching to drop those things into the comments so that we can hear from individuals who are participating just what is your why and what is your how, because it is, like Michelle said, it's going to be different for everybody.
It is as unique as each of us. Okay, your why should be as unique as you are. So just repeating, who are we? Too Unstoppable is a nonprofit organization. We founded it about 5 years ago. It founded by two women who had a personal history of breast cancer. And we each realize the benefits of exercise on our own journeys. And I will tell you that the two of us have very different relationships with exercise. We each have our individual whys and our individual hows. We have very different types of exercise, the way we do it and the reasons we do it. But we both realized how important it was in our own journeys. And we now want to help other women on the cancer journey experience the benefits of physical activity. And we come from a place where we get it because our own cancer journeys inform our work. Let's go to the next slide.
It's so amazing to me with all the different people we've had on this webinar series that people who have been through a cancer diagnosis are often filling in those gaps in medical care or in, you know, however you want to look at it from the larger organizations. But it's those organizations that are started by somebody who really gets it. They're able to design the programs, I think, for, you know, specifically for the people in mind that are dealing with it individually. So
exactly. We try to really think about all of the elements, and we know that each of us is different. So I already introduced myself. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So here's where we want to like hone in on what we're going to talk about tonight. And before I do that, I want to step back and say that we know that after being diagnosed with cancer, wherever you are, whatever the specific diagnosis is, it feels very out of control. Things feel very out of control when you get this diagnosis. And so we want to look at this trifecta and understand where we can take some control and where we can impact it. So when we look at what impacts our outcomes, we know that each of us has our own individual biology, and that's kind of what we're born with, our DNA, our shape, our metabolism, the way our hormones work. It's different for each of us. And so we all are kind of born, and then we grow with our individual biology. We don't have a whole lot of things we can do about that. We also have our medical treatment, which affects our outcome. And we do have some control over that. We can choose between this treatment or that treatment. We can choose our providers, and we do make those very heavy decisions. But overall, we're kind of following a medical regimen. It's the area of patient lifestyle that we can make a lot of difference ourselves, and we can take control no matter where we are in our treatment regimen, no matter where we are in our journey. Those elements include our nutrition, exercise, and our emotional well-being and what we do to help that. And tonight we're really going to focus on exercise. That is our lane for Two Unstoppable. That is our niche. But we believe that the other two are very, very important, and each of us makes choices in those areas also. But tonight we're going to focus on movement, exercise, physical activity, whatever word you want to use. So let's go to the next slide. All right. You also said earlier, Abigail, that you talked about our own sort of medical approach, and we actually feel like exercise is medicine. Exercise, in my book, is a complementary treatment to the other kinds of treatments that we're taking or undergoing. And one of my favorite quotes is from a researcher in Australia, and she says that if the benefits of exercise could be encapsulated in a pill, it would be prescribed to every cancer patient worldwide. So if only if it were in a pill, but it's not. So we're going to find other fun ways to incorporate it into our lives. Let's go to the next slide. So a little bit of the research and the evidence. And again, all you need to find is one of these that becomes your why. So researchers are realizing that exercise not only improves our overall quality of life, our well-being during treatment, but it actually may help to fight the cancer itself. Exercise changes our body's chemistry and makes it less welcoming or hospitable for cancer to grow. There are all sorts of studies that show that regular exercise can repress tumor growth. And some recent studies have shown that it improves the vascular function, thereby bringing the chemotherapy and making it more effective. So there are some early studies that show that. In fact, the last quote was out of Australia. In Australia, there have even been studies where people go right from an infusion center right into an exercise lab, and they're exercising immediately right after their treatment. And they're finding early innings here, they're finding that the treatments are more effective. Moreover, there are many ways, which we'll talk about in a minute, where exercise helps to combat side effects. And if it can combat some of your side effects, it will allow you to tolerate the treatment that you need a little better and be able to complete a treatment regimen or to continue with the treatment regimen. If you can lower the side effects, it makes it more tolerable. So that also allows us to receive the treatments that are being prescribed for us. So there's a lot of ways that exercise helps in making the treatment more effective.
I just want to say here, we at survivingbreastcancer.org, and generally from a personal perspective, we never want anybody to feel shame over not doing something, right? So exercise is there as a potentially a benefit, potentially something that can help improve overall quality of life, as well as give some physical benefits and maybe help with treatments and all of those things. But it doesn't mean that if you don't do it, then the cancer is going to grow, or that you didn't do something that you should have done or anything like that. So there's no element of anybody feeling bad. It's more of the, hey, here's some reasons why this could be really key and could help. And going back to what you said, Michelle, about here's something we can control in a situation where everything seems out of control. You can control how much you move. You can control.
Absolutely. And it may be that it just simply makes you feel a little better, or makes you feel a little more confident, or makes you feel a little bit more energetic. And that's also an important element of your outcome. It's our quality of life. So there's lots of things. This is a no guilt environment here. So regular exercise also helps to do all sorts of biological things like regulating hormones and reducing inflammation. Many of us may have heard about eating, anti-inflammatory foods or things like that. Exercise can help with that as well. And it helps to increase the circulation of our natural killer cells. So it does a lot of things in our body that helps us to fight the cancer. Let's just go to the next slide.
Yeah, those natural killer cells, that's your immune system, right? And anything we can do to boost our body's ability to address what's going on. Yes, those war or fighting metaphors are not something that we typically embrace in the MBC community generally, but there are cells that are legitimately going out to kill other cells. Like, that is legitimately their function.
That is the terminology that's used. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different facts or studies that have been done to demonstrate the benefits of exercise. And as we get into this, I want you to know that we're going to talk a little bit about what is exercise. And I don't want you to think it's an all or nothing kind of thing. So we'll get into this a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the how. So some studies have shown that women with breast cancer who got 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise each week saw reductions in risk of death from cancer or death from other causes. And so that's improving people's outcomes. Now, when I heard 150 minutes, when I first heard that, I thought, oh my, you must be kidding. I was completely overwhelmed by that number. But I promise you, we're going to break this down. And I'm also going to tell you that 2 minutes is better than 0, and 10 minutes is also okay. So it doesn't have to be 150 minutes. The reason they use that number is because that is the recommendation, not only for the cancer population, but for the general population. It's a number that's used. And so it's the number that was used in the studies. And that's why they use that number of 150 minutes. But it's a general number of exercise recommendations for everybody. The National Cancer Institute has shown that physical activity has beneficial effects, like things like combating weight gain, just general quality of life, literally just feeling better about ourselves. It does reduce cancer progression and improve prognosis. It can also minimize, as I said, combat and sometimes reverse some of the side effects of cancer treatment. And let's just look at one of the most common side effects of cancer and cancer treatment, cancer-related fatigue. Now, we define cancer-related fatigue. It's not just the fatigue we get from the treatments, the fatigue we get from staying up at night, either because we're on steroids or because we're worried, right? The fatigue, the emotional fatigue of just worrying about our future. Those are all cancer-related fatigue. And exercise is actually considered the #1 treatment for cancer-related fatigue. It's the gold standard treatment. Exercise has also been shown to elevate mood, as Abigail said, boost the immune system, and help improve outcomes in general. Now, we know that anxiety and depression are very common side effects of cancer as well, cancer and cancer treatment. And exercise helps to combat anxiety and depression in everyone. Really, it can help with anyone. And it has also been studied that the single most important factor for keeping up with fitness success is having a support system. And that's where we go back to coupling that social support with the exercise. So we're here providing a community of women that are trying to stay active after a cancer diagnosis. We have groups and classes, and we also have fitness buddies, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's go to the next slide.
It's so important, though, from a mental health perspective, right? Because we talk about mental health, we talk about, psychosocial issues and things. And, if you're feeling depressed or you're feeling anxious, that can undermine doing anything, right? And for people who haven't experienced depression prior to a cancer diagnosis, haven't experienced a lot of anxiety prior to a diagnosis, I know just for myself, my coping mechanisms that I had developed in the whole 38 years that I had been alive just weren't up to the task of dealing with a terminal diagnosis. So amazingly, it's something so simple. It's not medication. It's not therapy. It's not something that you're having to spend a lot of money on, but that exercise can be so significant. And thank you for the people who are including kind of what they're doing for exercise and how much they're able to do. It's always good to see that you're in the same boat as other people.
And that's exactly part of what this whole social support piece is connecting with other women who are in the same boat and kind of dealing with a lot of the same things. So this page just has a whole long list of different types of side effects that exercise can combat. And this is where I tell everyone, you only need to find one of these that's important to you. Find your why. Find the why that has motivated you to go on with the treatments. What is it in your life that you want to be able to do? And maybe exercise will help you do that. Do you want to have enough energy to play with your kids? Do you want to be able to have the strength to go to your child's graduation? Do you want to be able to carry the laundry basket? Do you want to have the flexibility to reach up to the top shelf in your kitchen? So, exercise can help with flexibility. Many of us have had treatments that reduce just our mobility, right? And affect our mobility. So each of these side effects, I know I have one that motivated me, that got me off the couch, that made me think about it every single day. Like, oh my gosh, this is what my treatments are doing to me. And maybe I can combat that. So each of us has our own why. And like I said, there's many, many ways that exercise can combat our side effects. So it can help with balance. It can help with your muscles. It can help with to lower the risk of heart disease, improve cardiovascular function, even improve your self-esteem. Many of us, our self-esteem is attacked when we get a cancer diagnosis, right? We feel like, well, what have we done wrong? Our bodies are betraying us. I'm not the same person I was before. Exercise can actually build your confidence and make you feel like you have some control over your body. And all of these are important. So any one of them is enough to motivate you. So, and then of course, as I said earlier, just improving your quality of life, even just for a day or for a few minutes. So I'll let you go to the next slide. So the American Cancer Society does have these recommendations that we take part in physical activity, that we avoid inactivity and try to return to whatever normal daily activities we can, and to exercise, and I put it in parentheses, aim to exercise 150 minutes per week. That's the goal. That's the recommendation. But as we're going to talk about, this is not all or nothing. It's do what you can. And if today you can't even walk to the mailbox, then today you can't walk to the mailbox. One of our most important mantras is be patient with your body. Be patient with your body. We do recommend that if you're going to take part in physical activity, that you try to find a way to incorporate some sort of strength training or resistance training. That is to help your muscles, your body function, and also it can help with your bones, to strengthen your bones. But of course, with all the precautions necessary, and we'll talk about those a little later. The American Society for Clinical Oncology, ASCO, last April, came out with a recommendation encouraging physicians to refer almost all patients to exercise during treatment. So this was a very broad statement. There had been a lot, as Abigail talked about, recommendations for after treatment was over, but this is for during treatment. This is for people that are still getting cancer treatments. And then we want to remember that it's important to do exercise that makes us happy, that feels enjoyable, that develops new skills, that incorporates social interactions, and that helps to stimulate both our minds and our bodies and our spirits. And so we'll talk a little bit later about how certain types of exercise can actually help with our brain health, our cognitive health, our emotional well-being, as well as our bodies. So let's go to the next slide. Now, I've been talking a lot about the benefits of exercise. And so why did we found Two Unstoppable? Because we recognized this huge problem and this huge gap. The fact is that there are many, many benefits of exercise after a cancer diagnosis. And those benefits are relatively indisputable. I mean, they're pretty consistent data. In fact, when we founded Two Unstoppable about 5 years ago, there were just an explosion of research coming out about exercise after cancer. And by the way, breast cancer is the top of the list of the type of cancers that are impacted by exercise and the outcomes. So the reality, though, is that despite all of this information, few women are getting the exercise they need. I recently heard a study that some information that I think 95% of cancer patients experience negative side effects from their treatments, and 5% are referred to exercise programs by their physicians, actually referred to a specific program. We also, we know that it's estimated that 70% of cancer survivors, and when they say survivor, they're talking about anyone who's been diagnosed in that case, 70% of cancer survivors are not getting the exercise they need. So we know there's a gap between what we want to see happening and what is really happening. And so Two Unstoppable, we founded to help inspire and encourage and support exercise among women with a cancer diagnosis. So let's go to the next slide.
Well, and I don't know about anybody else who's watching. My doctors said, stay as active as you can, but I have no specific recommendations for you. And oh, by the way, all the programs we have available are only for people who are not in active treatment. I don't know if other people have had a similar situation, if you actually were, even if that was a discussion. So definitely comment in the chat about that, because, you know, I think a lot of us, our doctors aren't even talking about it because there's so many other things to talk about.
That's exactly right, Abigail. That is a very, very common experience. While most oncologists, surgeons, radiation oncologists will say they know that exercise is beneficial to people with a cancer diagnosis, very few of them have the time or, frankly, the knowledge of what to refer their patients to. And that's why there are professional fitness trainers, there are fitness professionals who are certified to work with cancer patients. And Two Unstoppable works only with cancer exercise specialists or people certified to work with the cancer population. And that's an important thing to look for, because those are fitness professionals who have been trained to work with people who have different types of cancers, understanding both the impact of the cancer on your body and the treatment on your body and what your goals might be based on those. So it's really important to exercise in a safe environment. I'm actually going to stop for a minute. I think this is a good time to introduce one of my colleagues. If we can bring her up, that would be amazing. The fitness director from Two Unstoppable is also with us tonight, and I'd like to welcome her and introduce her briefly. And then a little bit later, as we get more into the details of what we deliver, she may be able to answer questions or enhance the conversation. So I'm introducing Stacy Mann, Two Unstoppable's amazing fitness director. Stacy is an experienced personal trainer. She has an advanced qualified cancer exercise specialist certification, and she's also a certified health coach. Stacy actually has a long list of certifications because she just loves to keep learning and growing. And we are so privileged and thrilled to have her leading our fitness team at Two Unstoppable. She has designed many of Two Unstoppable's most important fitness offerings, and we will introduce some of those a bit later. And she's here to share with you her expertise and knowledge of working with the metastatic cancer community. Stacey's special touch, her desire to help each woman individually meet and exceed her personal fitness goals while benefiting from the greater Two Unstoppable community, and her emphasis on helping us all find what we can do rather than focusing on what we can't do, has been a major ingredient in the success of Two Unstoppable's programs. And I am delighted to have her joining us tonight.
Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you. Hi, Abigail. Hi, Michelle. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for welcoming me on.
So Abigail, if we can put back the slides, I want to continue our conversation, and Stacey will jump in when appropriate. I welcome her to jump in and help guide the conversation. But what we were about to talk about was actually something that we all need to face and understand, aside from the funny, picture up here. We all have to recognize that while we talked a lot about the benefits of exercise, we have to acknowledge that there are many, many challenges and barriers to exercise. That's true of the general population. That's true of the entire cancer population. And I think it's even more challenging for the metastatic community. We recognize that there are psychological barriers. It might be hard to get motivated. We might be afraid. We might not think of ourselves as the gym or sporty type, right? Like I wasn't that person. I used to roll my eyes when I heard about the recommendations for exercise. There's also physical barriers. We all have comorbidities, the impact of our cancer treatment, the general aging process, which seems to happen a lot faster when we go through treatment. We have fatigue and the illustrious weight gain, just to add insult to injury. One study showed that patients with metastatic breast cancer experience a broad range of health problems that impact their ability to be physically active. So we recognize that there are real challenges and real barriers. And then there's environmental barriers, right? My job takes up a lot of time. I have lots of people in my life I have to take care of. I don't have access to a gym. The weather's really bad. I can't get out and walk, whatever. So there's real barriers. And in order to embrace the idea of exercising, we also have to recognize the barriers and figure out how, if we can get those benefits to outweigh the barriers sufficiently to motivate ourselves to stay active. So I talk about these because I want to acknowledge them and recognize them.
Well, and one thing you talked about having a cancer exercise specialist, and Stacey posted in our private chat about how there's 16,000 spread out over 50 countries. When I've attempted to go to, yoga classes, and I explained to the instructor my limitations, I literally went to one last week, and she was just like, I don't feel comfortable. And so I think if somebody, and I know my limitations, but if you go to a class or you go to a place where you might normally exercise like a gym, and then you start explaining your medical history or, a small snapshot of your medical history, because they always ask, right? From a liability perspective, they have to ask. If somebody isn't trained in dealing with people who have cancer or have had cancer, that can be very daunting and very overwhelming for instructors. So I think going somewhere where there's somebody who knows where you're coming from and has a comfort level with adjusting or designing a program with your limitations in mind, that to me is really key. Going back to those barriers, even if you're motivated and you want to go somewhere, that can often be something, you freak everybody out. And then you're like, oh, I'm the elephant in the room again, and see you later.
Abigail, we hear that all the time. That's exactly right. We hear that all the time, that you go and you talk to the fitness instructor. They don't understand what you're talking about with your side effects or your risks or your concerns. And then, women never go back again because you're afraid. It makes sense. I'll also acknowledge that even within the cancer community, the cancer exercise community, there are far too few, really very few programs for the metastatic community because of those concerns and risks. And so it is one of the reasons why our program that we offer specifically for the women living with metastatic cancer that it's so unique. Stacy, do you want to address any of that?
Yeah, so just to tag on to what Michelle just said, To Unstoppable offering a class for women living with metastatic cancer has really opened a huge door even for me as a cancer exercise specialist, because there haven't been studies done. There is not the research available to find out how exercise really truly affects a woman with metastatic cancer, and for what does it change in their bodies and what does it do other than enhancing quality of life, making the fatigue, some of the fatigue go away that Michelle talked about, that mental and physical fatigue, being able to just do daily functions better, gain some muscle strength back, maybe lose a little bit of the weight. That's always a goal that everyone always has, but gaining that tone back. But it's been more an anecdotal learning for me to be able to meet with women individually and learn from them. They know their bodies best. You know your body best. And when you come to me, I am not going to put my ideas on you. I want you to put your ideas on me, and then we're going to work together, given my knowledge of maybe surgeries that you've had or treatments that you've had, and then what you're telling me. And that's super important. And it's not something you're necessarily going to find in a big box gym or in a rec center or somewhere where they're offering cancer programs, but they're not taught by cancer exercise specialists. They're not taught by someone who has an understanding of, 40 different types of cancer, their surgeries, their treatments, the way they affect the body. And then someone who has had the opportunity to work with, well over several hundred people coming in the door, and you're talking to them and learning from them. And also way back in the conversation, harking back to, it's individual. Everything is individual, and you can't design a cookie cutter plan or say, oh, well, yeah, I know you can do this. Instead, no, let's work it all together and make you feel better as you're exercising. Because as Michelle said also earlier, you need to want to do it. And so if you know that you have a plan in place, that is something you're going to want to do because it works for your body and you feel good when you do it. That's the most important part of exercise and the most important part of what I do.
Yeah. I did just want to mention the YMCA does have a program called Live Strong that is designed for cancer survivors, I think, specifically. And some locations do include metastatic patients, not all of them. Those particular programs are typically taught by somebody with the extra cancer training. And certainly if anybody else has any other organizations that you know of, drop those in the chat. Live Strong, other than To Unstoppable, is the only one that I've heard of that is specific to this population. But then Live Strong also sometimes whatever their programming is in an individual location sometimes doesn't include metastatic patients. So just wanted to throw that out there. Everybody needs to be able to get to the point of being in a place where you feel comfortable, right? And if going to a specific place versus doing something in your home makes more sense to you, then Live Strong is another option. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you for sharing that, Abigail.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
so let's jump in for a second and just as we keep using this word exercise, 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 and think about in your head, when we say that, what does that mean to you? What's your definition of exercise? And you're welcome to put it in the chat, in the comments. But just think about what that means to you. And then I want to go to the next slide and hopefully break a few myths that some people believe about exercise when I talk about it, because I want to make sure that everyone feels that it is something that is feasible, that it is achievable, that it is reachable and accessible. And that is why another reason why To Unstoppable provides our programs. Our programs are almost all virtual, so they're accessible to anyone, anywhere. Many of our programs are free of charge, and we want to make them available and accessible to everyone. So a few myths that some people believe is, I can't exercise during treatment. That's not true for most patients.
Yeah, I was going to say, unless your doctor tells you not to.
Unless your doctor tells you not to. And even with that, you might be able to do certain types of things and not others during treatment. But it doesn't mean you just flat out can't do it. Some people think I have to work out in a gym for it to count. If I can't do 150 minutes, I might as well not do anything. Nope. Every 2 minutes counts. Every 2 minutes is beneficial. And you don't even have to sweat for it to count. Walking is a great way to start. So some facts: exercise can be safe and feasible for most patients. Exercise is, as Stacy said, it is not one size fits all. We have to tailor the program. We have to learn how to make modifications to meet our own personal challenges and our own personal bodies. And we also have to find exercise that makes us joyful, that makes us comfortable, that makes us feel good. And that's not the same for everyone. Exercise can be any movement that works for you. There's lots of ways to move safely and effectively. And sometimes it only takes moderate exercise to see benefits. When I say moderate exercise, or that term earlier, moderate to vigorous, that means that maybe as you're moving, you can still talk, but maybe you can't sing the national anthem while you're moving, but you can still talk, right? You don't have to be huffing and puffing for it to count. Right? So it can be moderate exercise and still be beneficial. Now, another thing is, as Abigail talked about earlier, this is not about guilt. This is not about what I didn't do. It is never, 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 never too late to start. You can start at any age, at any stage, at any point. And incidental exercise counts. So focus on moving in any way you can. I think it's on the next slide that I might have some examples of incidental exercise. These are things like, when you go to the store, park a little further away if you feel like you have the energy. Get a few extra steps in. When you're on the phone, walk around the house, walk around your backyard, rake leaves or work in the garden. If you're at work, don't text your colleagues, walk down the hall and poke your head in. Take the stairs on the way to the doctor's office instead of the elevator. Maybe even vacuuming your home. These all count. These are what we call incidental activity, and it all adds up. So any way that you can try to make your think about moving, think about every day, every hour, have I moved in the past hour? What am I going to do to move my body today? Let's go to the next slide, because I want to focus on some structured things that we offer. So
walking the dog is something that people have dogs, right? You have to walk your dog.
My dog was an incredible fitness buddy when I was going through my active treatment because the dog had to get walked. Now, there were times I felt not comfortable walking the dog by myself, and then I would find someone to walk with me. But knowing the dog had to be walked was a great motivator. So how can Two Unstoppable help? We have a whole host of offerings because it's not one size fits all. And so we have a whole bunch of ways to help you get moving. We offer oncology fitness classes. So again, specific fitness classes designed for the cancer community. We offer educational programs like webinars. We offer resources, videos online, and so on. Now that's reinforced by the total community of women trying to stay active. These are all women who have had a cancer diagnosis. And then we also have an opportunity to be assigned a fitness buddy, which might be just one or two other women who are your real mentors or fitness buddies. And it's peer-to-peer. It's another woman with a cancer diagnosis who might have similar goals, similar diagnosis, similar treatment phase, similar age, similar life phase. And you can find a buddy to work out with or simply to help motivate you and keep you accountable. Let's go to the next slide for some of the specifics. So some of our more general programs that we have, and these are for the entire cancer community, any woman with a cancer diagnosis, not only the metastatic community, but any woman with a cancer diagnosis. We have monthly meetups once a month. We meet on Zoom, and we talk about different themes with exercise. We always stick to our niche of exercise. Sometimes we have guest speakers. Sometimes we talk about books about exercise for cancer. We also offer a whole host of virtual fitness classes. Every month we have a 21-day challenge, which is curated by the wonderful Coach Stacy. They all have different themes, and they can be very effective. This month, we're working on our lower bodies, and we're doing some walking and other lower body exercises. And then we also have a monthly newsletter that gives you updates on the latest research and all of the activities going on at 2 Unstoppable. All of these always combine oncology exercise with social support on the virtual platform, because we want to be a provider of oncology exercise programs for women so that every woman with a cancer diagnosis can access the tools and support she needs to get moving and improve her own outcome. So because it's on the virtual platform, you can access us no matter where you are. Let's go to the next slide.
Well, I don't want anybody to miss Instagram. Stacy does these videos. What is it? 2-Minute Tuesdays.
Yes, 2-Minute Tuesdays at 2:00 every Tuesday. This Tuesday I was at 2:01, I think, but every Tuesday at 2:00 for 2 minutes, and we go through a variety of things. So yeah, definitely join us at 2 Unstoppable 2U.
And those 2 minutes count.
Absolutely.
Every 2 minutes counts.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be
one thing I wanted to mention is that slide about the incidental exercise. And then as it relates to our 21-day challenge, that's one of our most popular 21-day challenges, is the NEAT challenge, the non-exercise activity challenge. And you can do a lot of movement even from a chair. Let's say if you're not able to do any of those lower body things, there's a lot of movement, incidental movement that you can do seated as well. That's really helpful, but it is one of our most popular 21-day challenges. So come find the fun.
Yes. And anyone can join those anytime. They're all on our website at www.2unstoppable. That's the number 2unstoppable.org. And I think it's going across the bottom of your screen. As I mentioned, we have this online fitness buddy matching program. So that's also a free program. You can go online. It works a little like a dating service. You set up a little profile, you you talk a little bit about yourself, what your goals are. And then once you've been approved and moderated, you can go in and look at the profiles. We have over 600 or 700 women signed up to find a buddy, and you can go through the profiles and search based on criteria that are important for you. For example, you might want to find someone else who's been diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. You might want to find someone who's at the same stage of life as you are. You might want to find someone who likes the same type of exercise as you. Like if you like to do yoga, you might want to find someone else who likes to do yoga, and you can share stories. So you can find a buddy who's looking for similar things as you. Again, oncology exercise with that social support. Let's go to the next slide, because this is the most important thing we want to tell you about. Abigail was talking earlier about this particular program. So 2 Unstoppable Strong is a small group progressive exercise program that we launched in the fall of 2020. It is offered on the virtual platform, so it can be accessed by anyone from anywhere. It is taught by a certified cancer exercise specialist. The program was designed by Stacy, and she has trained other fitness professionals to teach some of the other sections. For the metastatic community, we launched in June of 2021, we launched a special sessions just for the metastatic community. So we now offer 2 Unstoppable Strong for women living with metastatic cancer. The groups are very small. We keep them to 4 to 6 women. Each session is 6 weeks long. You do 1 live Zoom class per week, and often a complimentary walking regimen is encouraged. Each member is assigned a fitness buddy. And then, this is the best part, the whole program is personalized and modified within the group setting. Each participant meets with Stacy individually before the program starts so that she can learn your health history, your fitness goals, some of the modifications or barriers or concerns that you have. And then she can design the program not only to have modifications that are specific to you, but as a group, the program is customized to the particular group of women who are participating then. Let's go back to that slide. I want Stacy to talk a little bit about the types of goals that typically women have when, we can just open it up, when they come to Two Unstoppable Strong for the metastatic community, and the types of benefits that people have been reporting.
So mostly what I hear is that women would like to combat some of the side effects that they're having during treatment, that they'd like to regain muscle strength and tone, that they would enjoy doing their everyday activities a little bit better. Maybe they're having trouble reaching up high because they're having some frozen shoulder issues or some joint issues. Maybe they have trouble walking up and down the stairs and they're looking for strength back in the glutes and the quads and in other areas. They also would like to improve flexibility, endurance, and then just generally feel better. The comments I've heard are feel a little more normal, feel a little more themselves. And these are coming from the women that are coming to me. And so we work together to try to find the options that are going to work for them to help them meet their goals within that group setting. So for the metastatic group, I am the one that's teaching that group. I am very protective of this group because I love all of you, and you are just, I have so much fun. And we get together and we work together, and I get to know you, and I get to know you very well through a very short 30-minute conversation. I understand how you move. I get to understand your goals. And then throughout the 6-week program, I get to know you a little bit more, and we get to work together. And no matter what happens along the road there, along that journey, we kind of try to work to overcome it all together and to keep you moving in a way that is safe for you. It's definitely a program that I would recommend to anyone. One of the great things about it is that sometimes the entire group becomes a support system. You don't just get a buddy within that group, you get the entire group coming together and working out together. We record the live classes and only the instructors in that class. And then you have the opportunity to do that recording with your group later on. So you can log on and get together and do your homework together and keep that accountability piece moving. A lot of our groups have set up chat programs and emails where they're counting steps together, or they're just reaching out and talking about their lives together. And it's so great because now you have a whole new group of friends that all want to move in some way together and support each other in that movement. And I think that that's been a really important piece of this. And of course, we wouldn't be Too Unstoppable without that piece, because we're bringing everyone together in that exercise mode and movement mode.
A lot of
don't forget the names. Each class gets a specific name.
And each class gets a specific name. Yes, I have a lot of fun coming up with different adjectives to describe each class and to move through those classes. And it definitely, I think, becomes a little motivating because you are a group and you now have a name. You're not just under the 2U Strong class. You are the Fearless 5 or the Fiery 5, I believe you were, Abigail.
Yes,
the Fiery
5. And yeah, we have a whole list of the groups that we have going on throughout our years that we've been doing this. And it's just so much fun to pick the name based on some personalities, based on how well I think the class is going to do, and whatever might be motivating to them.
We have had about 20 to 25, I think 21 to 25 women have completed Too Unstoppable Strong for the metastatic community thus far. We have 5 or 6 women in the session now. Overall, we've had about 140 women complete Too Unstoppable Strong, because we do have cohorts for women who completed active treatment in the last year. And we have a group of women who completed active treatment 1 to 5 years ago. And then, of course, this group for women living with metastatic cancer. One of the things I think that's really powerful about this program, as Stacy said, she's able to personalize it for the group that she's working with. So it's never the same class twice. And even within the 6 weeks, she continues to make modifications and customize it for the group. But also, each group finds each other, and that social support and social connection that they make together is really very powerful. And as you said, Abigail, there aren't always programs designed specifically for this community. And we know that each different diagnosis, each different phase that you might be in or stage that you're in feels different, and it might feel isolating from a different group. So finding a group of women living with metastatic cancer that are all trying to launch back into fitness somehow is very powerful. And I think what we're finding is that once the women go through this program, they feel empowered because they've now learned how to safely exercise and how to modify. They now feel empowered to go participate in other exercise programs. So for example, we're having a lot of our graduates from Two Unstoppable Strong now participating in our monthly challenges because they know how to modify, whether it's a squat or doing something from a chair instead of standing or instead of from the floor. They've learned from Stacy how to modify for their own needs.
So let's get into some real specifics. So sorry, Stacy, I just want to make sure we have time to get into the brass tacks of things, right? So number one, when you sign up for this, you have to have your doctor sign off on you participating. So there's a specific form that your doctor looks at. My doctor was like, this is amazing. I'm telling all my other patients about this. So that's one thing that I think is very important, that, you know, your team needs to be involved in signing off on you participating. But one of the participants or people watching asked, how often is the program offered for people with MBC? I think we're enrolling now for April, right?
So in every session that we offer, we've been offering at least one session for women living with metastatic cancer. So we had a session start in January, and there's now a group currently going on, and we're now enrolling for an April cohort that'll start. We are also willing to open up more sessions if we find that we have the demand. So we often look at how many women are inquiring, and then we look at whether or not we can open a new session.
Currently, we're doing three 6-week sessions in a year. So we'll do one in January, we do one in April, and then we do one in the fall. We found that a lot of people are doing things in the summer that doesn't quite go along, but we're also willing to reevaluate that if there is a demand for it, as Michelle said. But currently there's 3 times a year. And then we offer drop-in classes on a regular basis. So once you have a good feeling about what you're doing and you understand what movement works for you, you are welcome to join in on those drop-in classes such as Pilates, Zumba, these things that are also taught by cancer exercise specialists. So they are a part of the Two Unstoppable method and the Two Strong way. They understand what we're trying to promote and how we're trying to be. And that for those drop-in classes, you do not need your doctor to sign off on, but you do have to say that you understand what you're participating in for sure.
And what you do is on their website, you subscribe to the calendar, and then all of their offerings automatically goes onto whatever calendar you direct it to go to. So I didn't know all of the things that were offered. I subscribed to the calendar and like, oh my gosh, what are all these green things on my calendar? Because it showed up in green. So that way it can be a low level prompt to perhaps participate in something. I did want to make sure that everybody is aware for the metastatic group is that there is a cost that is associated with it up front. But then there is the option to participate in a study where you answer questionnaires and you get gift cards for each questionnaire that you complete. And so it ends up being a wash, but there is a small cost up front.
We do want to emphasize that while we do charge, we currently charge $100 for the whole program for all 6 sessions total. We never, ever want finances to be a barrier to exercise. So that list of barriers we talked about earlier, we never want that to be a financial barrier. So we do offer, if someone has a financial challenge, many of us have it after cancer because of all the expense of treatments and taking off from work and things like that. All you have to do is let us know, and we're able to find scholarships and waive the fee. So please don't ever let finances be a barrier to exercise, but it is one of the few programs that we generally charge for.
Because there's so much individual attention that
Yes.
comes from the program. And certainly I've never found a program that costs every program I see costs a substantial amount of money for providing that kind of individual interaction with somebody with Stacey's credentials. There's also a WhatsApp group.
Yep.
So participating in the 21-day challenges, there's a WhatsApp group, and that is the most active WhatsApp group that I am involved in. I mean, there's like people commenting all the time throughout the day that they participated in the challenge that particular day. So that can be very motivating, or sometimes a little, I don't know, it gets overwhelming at times. So you can turn off, I had to turn off the
notifications. Yes, it's a
I
very
actually
active
got one
group.
while we were talking tonight.
It's a very active
So, yes.
group. And some of the classes, some of the groups within their class will form a WhatsApp group or an email chain or something, again, to help remind each other to stay motivated, to stay active, to help, again, inspire and support one another. Because we're all about, again, combining that exercise with social support and social connection.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So we are getting close to the end of our time together tonight. It's been an hour. We try to stick to that. But as I warned you, ladies, I always ask our panelists to tell or to assign a word for the discussions, because I think sometimes that can show you, what to take away from the discussions. And it's very telling, I think, the people who are presenting to be able to label kind of how they feel, how the discussion went. So I usually call on Laura first so that our panelists don't feel too intimidated. Laura knows I'm always calling on her first. So Laura, what is your word for our discussion today?
Yeah, and I know you always call on me first, and I'm never prepared. And so next Wednesday, I'll make sure I am. And, the obvious word is exercise. So I'm trying to be a little bit more creative than that. But I kind of liked your phrase, like the 2 minutes count. Like just knowing that it's like small bite-sized chunks that can be done repeatedly makes it a lot more approachable. So, I'm kind of feeling like the 2 minute count hashtag going on. So thank you for that.
I love that.
That's great. That's great. Phrases are fine. Words or phrases. So Michelle,
I always break the rules. Sorry.
You always do. You always do. That's okay. All right, Michelle, what's your word for tonight?
We're too unstoppable, so I'm going to have to pick 2 words. And those 2 words are keep moving.
Great. That's wonderful. How about you, Stacey?
Motivating. I love talking to you and seeing your faces, and it's just motivating. Absolutely motivating.
Oh, well, and my phrase for tonight is no guilt, right? There's no guilt for not moving today. There's no guilt because you can always do it again tomorrow. We know that there are positives associated. We talked a little bit about those, that exercise has so many different benefits. But, I think that doing exercise in a community also is so important. We talk all the time about the MBC community and how there's so many positive things. That's the silver lining of an awful diagnosis, is the people that we get to meet and get connected with. And this particular program allows the community to really shine in that way, to motivate each other, to show each other that we can do this together. And I see a couple of other people posting. Ellen said she's excited and hopeful. I think one of the great things about,
Nancy,
as we're looking at these comments, yes, thank you, Nancy, is people don't know where to start, right? You have this idea, okay, exercise is good. Or your doctor says, hey, this is a really good thing to do, but then what do you do? Where do you start? And my hope for all of you is that a program like Too Unstoppable could be a starting place, because it allows you to understand we're all living in bodies that are totally different than from before cancer, right? Our bodies are irrevocably changed, and understanding our bodies, our limitations, are so very important, not just to minimize injury, but just so that we're comfortable in our own skin, right? It's not about the number on the scale, it's about how we feel. It's not about how many minutes we exercise this week, but how we're managing our side effects and using exercise to help with those side effects. So I hope you guys are all excited and that you flood to Unstoppable with applications so that they open more sessions, or they have to, because this is such an important process, or such an important piece, I think, of this idea of survivorship. One of the themes that we're going to be tackling in our workshops this year for the MBC community is this idea of living well in survivorship, right? We're not waiting around to die from this awful diagnosis. We are living with cancer. We are living with the things that we have to deal with because of this diagnosis, and getting movement or inserting movement into our days is such an important piece of that. So thank you, Michelle and Stacy, for being here tonight, for explaining and the science behind it, right? It's always good to know, it's a good thing, but knowing the whys is also very important. So thank you so much for being here.
Always great to partner with other nonprofits doing great work, and seeing familiar faces and friends and all of that. So thank you.